Theodore Robert Bundy, also known as Ted Bundy, was a notorious serial killer and necrophile who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous women and girls during the 1970s. Ted Bundy committed his first murder in 1971 in Seattle, Washington, and was first jailed in Utah in 1975 for aggravated assault and attempted criminal assault. He then became a suspect in a progressively longer list of unsolved homicides in several states, facing many criminal charges in 7 states between 1974 and 1978 before his ultimate recapture in Florida in 1978. Bundy was eventually executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison on January 24, 1989, after confessing to 30 homicides, although the true number of victims is believed to be higher. So who was Ted Bundy really? What compelled him to commit all these horrific acts? Perhaps a look into his psyche can explain it. While experts found Bundy's precise diagnosis elusive, the majority of evidence pointed toward antisocial personality disorder. According to the DSM-5, an individual with antisocial personality disorder must exhibit a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others, as indicated by three or more of the following. First, failure to conform social norms with respect to lawful behaviors. Second, deceitfulness. Third, impulsivity. Fourth, irritability and aggressiveness. Fifth, reckless disregard for safety of self or others. Sixth, consistent irresponsibility. Seventh, lack of remorse. Ted Bundy displayed at least 5 of these traits. In fact, he openly admitted to having some of these traits during his interview while incarcerated. During an interview in 1981, Ted Bundy said, "Guilt doesn't solve anything, really. It hurts you. I guess I'm in the enviable position of not having to deal with the guilt." More importantly, many of Bundy's young female victims regarded him as handsome and charismatic, in which he used as a facade to deceive and prey on his victims. This was a shock to many who knew Ted Bundy. As his great aunt described, Bundy seemed to turn into another unrecognizable person. She suddenly, inexplicably found herself afraid of her favorite nephew as they waited together at a dusk-darkened train station. He had turned into a stranger. So, what may have caused Ted Bundy's antisocial behavior? From a developmental perspective, Bundy's behavior can be explained by his early childhood trauma, especially the fact that he was raised to believe his grandparents were his real parents and his mother was his older sister, in which he discovered for himself at an unknown age. According to biographer and true crime writer Ann Rule, who interviewed Bundy during his incarceration, Bundy expressed a lifelong resentment towards his mother for never talking to him about his real father and for leaving him to discover his true parentage for himself. At the age of 4 years old, Bundy was adopted by his aunt Julia Coa and her husband, Johnny Culpepper Bundy, in which Bundy described as wasn't very bright and didn't make much money. Consequently, Bundy exhibited antisocial behaviors at a very young age, which may be an important predisposing factor for life course persistent antisocial personality disorder. In an interview, his adoptive mother and aunt recalled awakening one day from a nap to find herself surrounded by knives from the kitchen. Her 3-year-old nephew was standing by the bed, smiling. Bundy also described to biographer Stephen Michaud how he would consume large quantities of alcohol and canvass the community late at night in search of undraped windows where he could observe women undressing, or whatever else could be seen. Another possible factor is the pornographic roots of Bundy's crimes. James Dobson, a psychologist who interviewed Bundy, claimed that violence in media and pornography is to blame for Bundy's crimes. He explained, it happened in stages, gradually. Pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality is once you become addicted to, you keep looking for more potent, more explicit, and more graphic kinds of material, until you reach a point where the pornography only goes so far, where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it will give that which is beyond just reading it or looking at it. However, James Dobson is also the founder of Christian evangelical organization focused on the family, and the fact that pornography played a negligible role in the case before Bundy talked to Dobson suggests that the claim could be biased. If Ted Bundy was truly insane, couldn't he have gotten off the charges by insanity defense, also known as the NGRI plea, not guilty by reason of insanity? Established precedents that define the insanity defense are as follows. First, the Manhattan Rule. Second, the Irresistible Impulse Rule. Third, the Durham Rule. Fourth, the American Law Institute Standard. Fifth, the Federal Insanity Defense Reform Act. The Manhattan Rule of 1843 states that people are assumed to be sane unless it can be proved that at the time of committing the act, they did not know they were committing the act or did not know what they were doing was wrong. The Irresistible Impulse Rule of 1887 holds that accused persons might not be responsible for their acts if they had lost the power to choose between right and wrong. The Durham Rule of 1954, also known as the product test, is a rule in a criminal case by which a jury may determine a defendant is not guilty by reasons of insanity because a criminal act was the product of a mental disease. The American Law Institute Standard of 1962 combines the cognitive aspects of Manhattan Rule with the volition focus of resistible impulse in holding that the perpetrator, if at the time of the act, the perpetrator lacked substantial capacity to conform his or her conduct to the law. The Federal Insanity Defense Reform Act, adopted by Congress in 1984 as the standard for the insanity defense to be applied in all federal jurisdictions. This act abolished the volitional elements of the ALI standard and modified the cognitive standard to read unable to appreciate. So, if Ted Bundy was insane, how come he didn't get off on his charges through the NGRI plea? Well, according to the Ted Bundy tapes, a documentary about Bundy's trial, Bundy was not willing to adopt any scientific label. He said in an interview, "I knew I wasn't crazy, insane, or incompetent, or anything else. I was insulted by even the suggestion by my attorneys that we should consider the defense. They knew damn well I wasn't crazy." Bundy then decided to handle his defense on his own, and the rest was history. Polly Nelson, a member of Bundy's last defense team, described him as the very definition of heartless evil.